Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my book review of the book Sisterhood of Dune by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson. This is the first book in the Schools of Dune trilogy that they wrote. Now, to give you a brief background on what I've thought of the Dune books that I've read so far, I did read the original Dune novel a couple years ago, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic, amazing. Great book. And I was super excited to get into the sequels. And then I read Dune Messiah. Didn't love it. Then I read Children of Dune. Maybe Dune Messiah was a singular issue. Maybe if I read Dune Messiah or Dune, Children of Dune afterwards, I'll enjoy it. Didn't really enjoy Children of Dune. So I thought, maybe I should stop the Frank Herbert books. They're just not connecting with me. But Kevin Anderson is an author who I've always connected with his books on some level. I don't always love all of his books, but he generally works for me. Particularly, I liked his space opera books, the Saga of the Seven Suns. I've liked his Star Wars stuff. I've liked other science fiction stuff he's written. So I thought I'd give his Dune books a chance that he wrote with Brian Herbert, the son of Frank Herbert. And those books were the Dune House trilogy, the House Atreides, House Harkonnen, and House Carino. And I thought this was a delightful trilogy, and I know there's a ton of detractors who hate Kevin Anderson and Brian Herbert for what they've done with the Dune universe. I personally think that they write some of the best Dune storylines for me, and I love the way they write political intrigue. And so I was excited to read this. And some people told me, don't start with Sisterhood of Dune, because you need to read the Butlerian Jihad first to understand it. But I said, these are the books I have, so I'm gonna give it a chance. I got these for my birthday last year, so I've had them for about a year. And so I said, I'm gonna give them a chance. If I start it and I don't understand, I'll go back and read the Butlerian Jihad trilogy first. But I started with this book, and I loved it. This is one of my favorite books of the year. This is my favorite Dune book I've read yet. I loved this book. There was so much greatness in this book. I was floored by it. I was amazed by what Brian and Kevin put into this book, because so many people rag on them, and I understand why some people don't like their style, but I expected mediocrity from this book. I expected a cash grab. I did not expect awesome entertainment that just had me on the edge of my seat throughout. So this book is set, I think, a couple thousand years before the events of the main Dune universe, and the main Dune novels, like the original Dune novel. And what it does is this book starts a trilogy, the Schools of Dune. The sequels are Mentats of Dune and Navigators of Dune, which I will be reading very soon, because, oh my goodness, this first book is amazing. But this is basically about the aftermath of the Butlerian Jihad and the kind of formation of the Dune universe as we start to know it in the Dune, earlier Dune novels by Frank Herbert. And so this book has all the political stuff, and so you don't see any of the main characters from the Dune novels like you did in the House trilogy, which I think helps this book out, because there was only so far Brian and Kevin could do with this trilogy. They only had limited prospects with what they could do with the characters, and so while they were incredibly entertaining political thrillers, they were a little bit predictable, and also were just the tiniest bit hindered by the fact that you kind of knew everything. And of course, there's not a problem with writing a prequel trilogy or prequel novels or prequel series. You can always do that and tell great stories. This is a prequel story, in fact, so it's not knocking those books as like bad books. In fact, those are incredibly entertaining books for me. However, this book has an advantage that all of the characters are unique. I think there's one character who is a holdover from the Butlerian Jihad trilogy. He's like the one holdover character, just about all the other characters are unique to this trilogy. And so because of that, there's a little bit more weight, a little bit more risk, and there's not as much danger. Yes, they're setting up the future, but if they set it up in a different way, they still have time to course correct. So there's a lot of opportunities in different directions that this book can go. And so I really liked that. But what this book does that's so great is its deeper themes. And people are going to be shocked when I say that, because if there's one thing Kevin Anderson is not known for, it's deep themes. His books are fun political romps. His books typically are fun, multi-plot, intricate political action storytelling. He does not write deep philosophical stories in the way that, say, Frank Herbert did. And so his style's very different. However, this is, I think, one of the deepest and most thematically dense Kevin Anderson works. Maybe not per word, because I think his Young Jedi Knights books are incredibly dense, and those are, incredibly short. But nonetheless, this book is still pretty dense and still carries a lot of weight that you have to think about. This book, as a result of being after the Butlerian Jihad, they've gotten rid of the machines that enslaved them for a while, the machines that slaughtered them and were terrible to them. They've eradicated the machines. They've basically outlawed machines in the known universe. And so we are seeing a political pendulum extreme of, first it was the machines that controlled everything, now everything is anti-machine. And it just seems so prescient and prevalent for today's society. I mean, this book was written back in 2012, but it's still dealing with the dangers of AI, the dangers of over-reliance on technology. But it's also, on the flip side, looking at what happens when you clap back too hard. What happens when you swing too much in the opposite direction? When you try to course correct from evil, you bring on evil yourself sometimes. And so I think this is an incredibly well-timed read for me as we're dealing with the questions of AI and of robots and things like that. And this book also just really looks into how political parties will be beholden to the mobs, and how political leaders make decisions that they know are not morally right, but are politically right, or are necessary, perhaps, for the greater good, even though they have to perhaps bend their morality a little bit. And that is a great theme to explore, I think, especially in the Dune universe. I think it kind of fits with the original Dune novels a little bit. And this book also has a small subplot about revenge. It's not a huge part of the book, nowhere near as big as the importance of the man versus machine element of the book, but the idea of the idea of revenge is explored in one character's plotline. One character's ancestors were wronged, and at least they think they were wronged by this other character, and this other character resurfaces after hundreds of years. Not hundreds of years, like 100 years. And so this young character decides to do revenge, to do a revenge story on this resurfaced character from two different houses. They're two different big houses. If I said the names of the houses and you're a Dune fan, you would instantly know both of them. So they're well known. And that storyline was incredibly well written. And I just think that Kevin and Brian delivered something in this book that they just haven't done before, and Kevin really hasn't even done before, which is have the political intrigue be at top efficiency levels like their other books, while also having the themes and characters at top efficiency levels as well. Loved all of that. And this is also a rare book where I did not have a single plot line that I was bored by. There was not a single plot line that I felt a chore to read. Every plot line was interesting to me. Every plot line was fascinating. Every plot line I felt was important. Every plot line was connected to the other plot lines. You can easily see the connections as the book unfolds. They are not incredibly disparate. I think that the problem with his Saga of the Seven Sons in some ways was that you had like 30 or 40 point of view characters or point of view plot lines, maybe even 50 in some cases. And it was just ridiculous to follow all of them. I mean, absolutely ridiculous to follow all the plot lines. Here, there's maybe 10 or 12, maybe 14 or 15 at most. And so because of that, it's much more contained, and it's still a multi-plot-lined, multi-character epic, but it's much more manageable. And the storylines were each and every one of them was intriguing. Now, they run the risk, because there's the three different schools of Dune, which are the Sisterhood school. They're not called the Bene Gesserit yet, but that's what they are, the Bene Gesserit school. And then you have the Mentats school, and then the Navigators school. See why it's called the Schools of Dune? Each book is named after one of the schools. And there were three schools, and so in a way, they ran into the danger that they could all seem a little similar and be doing the same story. And at a few moments, I was like, wait, which school is this that we're dealing with? But they're unique enough that I think it still works. And I was still incredibly interested in the different schools. I just had a few moments of confusion, but it was easily answered and explained. And there were some great twists and turns in here that I did not expect. Some of the stuff I expected, but some of the stuff I was like, wow, I did not expect you to go there. There's some dark stuff in here. So as a whole, I loved this book. Truly one of the top books of the year. I can't believe I'm saying it was one of the deepest books I've read this year, and it's by Kevin Anderson. Who knew? But I loved the book. I mean, I cannot quantify how entertaining this book was. What should have been, it's one of the longer books I've read this year. It's like 700 pages. I blew through it in like 2 or 3 days. I mean, it was just super fascinating. So if you've read Sisterhood, actually, no, now that I think about it, it was less than 2 days' time. Less than 2 days' time that I read this book. So if you've read Sisterhood of Dune and you enjoyed it, let me know in the comments section down below. Or if you didn't enjoy it, let me know that too. But I'd love to talk with more people about this, because this was a delightful book to read. So until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.